Hey everyone, Christine I see here and welcome back to the channel. So this is the second part to the implements that are on the exterior of our Ford Transit van build. This is the camera and security system. We're doing this because we want to be able to control certain things if we happen to be away and the dog has to stay in the car, like the dog isn't allowed in certain places, that we can leave her and be safe that she's not going to get any overheated or too cold, that type of deal. And it helps us keep an eye on our van because, you never know. This might be overkill to some, but it's something that we've picked up and learned throughout the years of having an RV, trailers, and then the minivan as well. So I hope you enjoy. This is Matt again, and he goes into full detail.
So we're working on the cameras today. We're gonna have a 4-camera system on the outside of the van, 2 side view cameras, 1 front camera, 1 rear camera. The way this system is designed, you can have up to 8 cameras on it. We'll have 4 on the outside of the van, 2 on the inside. 1 in the driver's compartment, so we can see if anyone were to ever break in, we can see who they are. We're also going to have 1 in the rear compartment. That way, when we're gone, we can check on the dog inside or see inside again for security reasons. Some of the nice things about this camera setup is it does have a DVR, so it records onto a disc, but it also records to the cloud. So if anyone were to ever steal the van, we would be able to look and see the video of them doing that. Also, because it is Wi-Fi and 4G enabled, we're going to use Wi-Fi because we plan on having full-time Wi-Fi in the van. We're going to hook up to that. With that, then I can look at the phone or internet, wherever I'm at, get on the computer, and look inside or around the van for security. It also has the ability for alarms to be hooked up, so if the doors get opened, it will alarm. If it gets started, it can alarm and notify us then by our phone to tell us to, hey, check the van. So the system is actually pretty neat. I'm unboxing it now. We'll take a look at the parts of it here and see if we can bench test it. Okay, here's the camera system. It's from JOINLGO. It is off of Amazon. It comes with a monitor. The monitor splits into four parts, so we can watch, both side cameras, front and rear cameras all the time. While we're driving, it gives us side view and rear view cameras. I'm going to mount the front camera high, so that way if we ever worry about clearance, we'll actually have the camera all the way up on top so we can see whether we're going to clear something or not. Here's the DVR that goes with it, 4 camera inputs, the 4G input, the Wi-Fi input, GPS input. We ordered 6 cameras. 2 of them are these mini starlight cameras that are supposed to work very well in low light. And then 2 of them are infrared cameras. That way inside, where there really is no light, we can use infrared, again, to check on the dog and the inside of the van when we're not in there. Comes with all the cables that you need, all the connections for the microphone and the speaker inside, power, etc. Here's how the side camera came out. I wanted to mount this up against the fairing here, but then I realized obviously that is not far enough out that you won't be able to see down. I'd be able to see sideways but not down. So I just took some threaded rod and made this extend out. Now this is actually only 6/32 threaded rod, and it's not the strongest in the world, stainless steel, but this is such a light camera that actually is a pretty solid mount, so I think it'll be just fine. Realistically, this camera is so light, we could almost just adhere it right to the side here, and you wouldn't have much for this to come up over top for wiring. And so if this doesn't work out, that would be my next thought, is just to adhere it to the side here. Front camera you can see here is mounted. Basically, I just screwed it through the fairing. That gives us a front view. It also gives us a high view, so that way if we're ever worried about clearance, that camera actually will give us an idea how well we clear. Now for the wiring here, I have both the wiring for the awning here, and basically I just took some rubber hose, slipped it over that wire so I could push it into there to give that a little protection where it comes out. I have wire loom then around the camera wire, and then I put them both into one wire loom. Now the connections for the camera actually have this little rubber seal on them. They screw together. According to the manufacturer, they are weather resistant. They're not waterproof. You can't get them fully wet, but they are weather resistant. Well, I'm not sure if that was good enough, so I ended up adding a little box here, a junction box. This junction box is sealed, and I'll put that in there, and then that'll give us, this will be at least protected from the weather some. This then will go into the end here, which I realize won't seal that completely, but I'm going to RTV the edge of it. It still could get water in it, but because it's under the fairing, it's not directly exposed. I think it'll be just fine the way that is. I have the other camera mounted here. Same thing, I had to put it off of the rack to get it to view downward so we can get a view of the side well for parking and so forth. And then I have the hole drilled for the roof gland here. I need to file it out just a little bit, but this is where the roof gland's going to go. I'm going to point it forward. I wasn't sure about that because then when we're driving, water wants to push into it, but it also is protected by the fairing. This way it's actually sloped downwards a little bit, and that way rain won't want to run into it when it's sitting here and raining from above. Even though the solar panel will be covering this, I'm still going to point it that way. This will be completely filled with silicone once we get the wires through, so that'll help protect it also. All right, here's the setup for all the entries into the roof. You can see I've added the box here. This is a weatherproof box. Drilled a hole, obviously, for that to fit. Used window weld, enough so that when you push it down, excess comes out, and make a nice fillet around the edge. That'll be nice and waterproof that way. This is the roof gland for the solar. You can see the 2 1/2-inch holes I drilled there for the wire, the 10-gauge wire. I'm going to put a rubber grommet in each of those. This will get window welded into place also. Pardon the mess. I haven't brought the vacuum up to clean yet. You can see now I took some Eternabond, wrapped the end. That'll just help keep some water out of that. And then same thing, I wrapped the end of each of these, just again to help keep water out, keep the conduit there from sliding out also. So over to here, and I use window weld to put in the roof gland there. Then you can see the roof gland for the solar. That is window welded in place also, so it should seal up nicely. Realistically, there's only 2 small holes underneath the solar panel part, and they have rubber grommets, and it's very tight, so it should seal those pretty well. At the end, that end of this box, I will pull out all of the wiring so it's at the end like so, and then that'll all get filled with silicone. That'll help seal that. It is facing downwards, both of them, which is into the wind, but with the fairing it should be protected decently, and the solar will sit over top of it. But the idea is it'll give us enough slope downwards that if water does get in there, it's going to want to run forward, not actually into the van. Hopefully that's the idea. Now we have to mount the rear camera, bring it forward, get the solar panels mounted. Now that the cameras are mounted on the roof, here's where they come through. We're not anywhere near ready to wire these into place, but I want to be able to at least test out to see if it works. So this big jumble of wires is all the wires from each camera. There's obviously plenty of wire there, but it all comes to the DVR here, and this is the DVR. It hooks up right now only 4 of the cameras. It can handle 8, and then cameras go in here. You've got a GPS antenna, power. It's got a Wi-Fi and a 4G antenna. We hooked up the Wi-Fi because we'll use Wi-Fi to keep this running. Hooked up the screen. The rear camera is not working. Front camera, driver's side, passenger side. I have to go up now and align these still so I have the best and straightest view possible. The front actually came out pretty good on its own. Here's the rear camera mount. Goes onto the back of the van like so. I made this out of 2 pieces of extruded aluminum. This is just a piece of aluminum that I cut and then shaped. Because the rear camera needs to face downward some to get the back door, I tilted that in there and bolted the rest together. It has to be this long mainly because the rear part of the roof rack is mounted forward a little bit because we were trying to extend the front out to get as much room for solar panels as possible. So to get past the rear of the van so we can see the door and behind us, had to extend it out. This is threaded here. What I'll do then is on the cross member on the back, I'm going to drill through, and then just this mounts through there. These then also get then attached to the top. Alright, here's the camera mount. It actually has to extend out that far, otherwise I don't get a good picture downwards of the hitch and where the bumper would be. I want this to be able to see those things. Obviously that way when I'm backing up I can see straight down to this level. So you have to build that backwards. Remember, we put the roof rack forward as far as we could so we could get as much solar on the front. We ended up getting 400 watts on the front. And then as we come around, obviously we have the awning mount, and here's the side view camera. Same thing, had to be built out some so that way I could get a view straight down to the door handle. For security wise, I want to be able to see who can get in and out of that door, both doors here. All right, what I'm working on now is hooking up the wiring for the camera system. It has a GPS beacon. It has then for the power for the monitor and video out for the monitor. I'm running those across here. I have power then for the unit, which will run down to where the batteries will be eventually. I have the cables that come in from each camera running along through here, down here, and then out here. Now all those lines are very long, so they've wound back and forth here, no sharp edges, but they'll all come out here, which is where we're going to mount the DVR itself. So I'm routing all these wires to there, the GPS, the Wi-Fi antenna I have to mount here. I'm going to mount that inside the light here because the Wi-Fi is going to be inside here. So we're mounting those things up before we put the headliner back in, because I'm going to put a hole in the headliner so it can come through right there. So I'm going to put an extra hole in the headliner here to run the wires through. Now, all of these holes are not used. This one is where the shelf is mounted. Through there is where the shelf's mounted. This one is open, but you can see that little faint line right there. That's where the shelf pushes up in there. So I want the wires on this side. Otherwise, I'd have to cut a groove in the shelf to get them through there. So I'm going to put a hole here in the headliner. I'm going to use a hole saw to do that. I'm not sure if this is the best choice or not, because I'm afraid it might catch and tear that. So I have the sharpest one or newest one I have to see if that works. If not, then I'll just cut it out. But we'll see. Okay, worked out pretty good. Cut through it nicely. You can see it pulled the fabric a little bit, but not enough to matter. This again is on the flat spot, so it'll be hidden pretty well behind the DVR. All right, we're now mounting the monitor. This is the monitor for the side view and rear view camera. This is the mount that it came with. This part here had a big bracket on it, too big for this, and it won't mount it. This is pretty light, so I think it'll mount here. It's hanging from there now. I don't see why it won't mount right there without any problem. So I drilled this out, put a long bolt in it. It's really longer than what I need, but it's what I had. And then you can see we're gonna tighten that up onto there. I have the monitor installed now. You can see what this gives us then. And this stays on full time as long as we have the monitor on. On the left there, top left, is the driver's side camera, which goes all the way then from the door handle to the back of the van. And then a little bit behind also, obviously, because you can see the back of the garage there, which is obviously past the van. And then on the passenger side, same thing, door handle all the way to the back of the garage. So you can see cars coming up this way that are next to you that are out of your mirror's view. This has side view, side sensor, so the little light shows up, but this way you can see that. Also then you have a front view here that you can see, gives you the hoods up, you can see right where that goes to, and then a back view here, which has the bumper right along there, and again to the side here as far as the camera goes, and then again you can see the trash can, which you can see in the upper one there. So it gives you full coverage behind you driver or passenger side, driver's side, and then in front, which isn't as important except for I mounted the camera high so that way you can tell actually up here if you're ever going to hit something going beneath trees or a awning that's not marked or something like that. And then obviously it has power on and off. The DVR, you can set it how it shows what the labels are on here, whether it shows 2 or 4, and you can actually rotate between those using the remote.